What's happening, cat daddies and foxy mamas? It's the Blaxploitation fanatic with another episode of the Blaxploitation Appreciation Podcast, where we celebrate Blaxploitation culture from movies, the music, the books, and everything in between. Well, let's hop into today's episode. First and foremost, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the rebranding of the podcast. For anybody that's been with me for the first couple of episodes, you know it was originally titled the Funk and Soul Explosion podcast, excuse me. And I decided to change that because when we think funk and soul, we think music. And so I didn't want people to think that, this was just about the music. Because again, I'm celebrating and appreciating Blaxploitation culture as a whole, which for me, Blaxploitation was more than just movies. I know a lot of people just think Blaxploitation were the movies during the 70s, but I like to think of it as a whole culture. So we cover music, movies, books, and everything in between. All right. So now we got that out the way. Let's go ahead and get into today's movie, which is Pam Grier and Foxy Brown. Now, to me, this is actually the second best of Pam Grier's four main films. So anybody that knows Pam Grier, follows her closely, knows she's been in a lot of movies and she's a Blaxploitation beauty, man. We love Pam Grier. But there was a series of four movies that she was kind of like the main billing in during 73, 74, 75, and they were Coffee, which to me is the top one. That's the best to me. And shout out to the guys over at the Black Deth 101 podcast, because they do podcasts on Blaxploitation movies, and they did an episode on Coffee, went into deep detail. So I highly encourage you to check those guys out and what they're doing. I'll put a link in the show notes probably. But then Foxy Brown was number two to me, which came out in 1974. And then 1975, there was actually two released, Sheba Baby and Friday Foster. And to me, those are kind of like neck and neck, the bottom two of the four. But Foxy Brown, man, it's just, again, when I talk about the campiness of Blaxploitation, this is wonderful. And it's great to see Pam kicking butt throughout this movie. The way it starts, it's kind of like almost an homage to James Bond movies, because it actually opens with like a Pam Grier dance montage with her dancing to the theme song to the great from Willie Hutch, who, I mentioned Willie Hutch in episode one when he did the soundtrack to the Mac, but he also did the soundtrack to Foxy Brown. And the theme song the movie starts off with her dancing to the theme song, and it is like, it's just cool. Like I said, it's reminiscent of James Bond, but it's just lovely, man, because you see like silhouettes of Pam Grier, and anybody that knows Pam Grier knows she was very curvaceous. So the silhouette and the dancing, it's real cool. So what's the premise and the plot of the movie in and of itself? In a nutshell, Foxy Brown is out to get revenge on people who murdered her boyfriend. That's the movie in and of itself in a nutshell. And who you got in this movie is, of course, the lovely Pam Grier. You have a Blaxploitation legend, Antonio Fargas, who plays her brother Link. And, he did some trifling stuff, but there's one particular scene in the movie that I love to, when I think about going back and how many times I've watched this movie. This particular scene with Link always stands out. So let me share this with you real quick, see if we can get this up and running.
Foxy, look, I'm a black man, and I don't know how to sing, and I don't know how to dance, and I don't know how to preach to no congregation. I'm too small to be a football hero, and I'm too ugly to be elected mayor. But I watch TV, and I see all them people in all them fine homes they live in, and all them nice cars they drive, and I get all full of ambition. Now you tell me what I'm supposed to do with all this ambition I got.
Ugly to see a politician. You tell me what I'm supposed to do with all this ambition. So that's just classic Blaxploitation, man. So Antonio Fargas, like I said, plays her brother Link. Terry Hicks Carter, which trying to think what was the name. I think he was in Brother on the Run, but he plays Foxy's boyfriend and kind of got did dirty by Link, which I'll talk about in a minute. Other people who was in this movie is Sid Haig. If you're not familiar with Sid Haig, he was the you've seen him in a lot of Pam Grier movies that were directed by Jack Hill, like Big Birdcage, I think Black Mama, White Mama. He was, I believe Sid Haig was in Coffee. Tall white guy, kind of creepy looking, but he was actually in a lot of horror films too. He has a small role, but Sid Haig to me, I always like the guy. So whenever he's in a scene, you can expect either some humor or something crazy. And so the little role he plays is cool. Bob Miner, Robert Lee Minor, I'll talk about this vigilante group that was part of the movie. He plays kind of like the lead group, the lead vigilante that helps Foxy out and getting her revenge and all that stuff. And then the cool thing about Bob Miner is he was actually the person who coordinated all the stunts, because for a while he was the president of the Black Stuntmen's Association in Hollywood. The lovely Juanita Brown, which would have been able to do a lot more movies. She starred in Black Starlet, but she plays a pseudo friend of Foxy as Foxy goes undercover to try to expose this ring that killed her boyfriend. And then the two main bad guys are Peter Brown and Catherine Loder, who play some kind of like weird sickos. But that's kind of the main people who were in this movie and kind of how it starts off. So if I were to give you the overview of how the movie starts off, the link. So Antonio Vargas, he's being followed by some thugs who are basically ready to give him a beat down. So you can kind of see him kind of like looking around, getting followed by these thugs. And he hits this little restaurant stand. He kind of gets a reprieve when these cops show up. So he's like kind of sucking up to the cops and trying to keep the cops around so the guys can't beat him up. And then what he does is, while he's kind of got a little bit of a reprieve, he calls Foxy on the phone, asks her to come save him. And so she shows up and, rescues him from the thugs. And then we cut to where Foxy's in the hospital and her boyfriend is all wrapped up in bandages. And she's like, what's this about? But basically he's gone through facial reconstruction surgery because he got roughed up in a drug case. He's a policeman and was undercover and got roughed up in a drug case and all this good stuff. So he gets a whole new identity. And then, throughout this, what happens is, we get a little glimpse of the neighborhood vigilantes, Bob Miner, his group, roughing up local drug dealers. So, that was kind of cool, the revolutionary aspect of pushing the drugs out of the hood type of deal. But Foxy introduces her new boyfriend under the new identity, Mike, I forget his last name, but she introduces him to Link. And Link, her brother, sort of makes the connection that, this dude seemed familiar. And so he finds through some kind of sleuthing and snooping type of deal, he makes the connection that Link is actually this dude named Dalton Ford, who was the police officer who went undercover for the people who Link is pushing for and owed money to. So in efforts to get in their good graces, what he winds up doing is he winds up selling Mike/Dalton Ford out to people and telling them who this guy really is. And they wound up killing him. So, Foxy's mad than a mug, and actually she goes and beats Link's ass and to find out how to get in with the people that killed her. So let me show you this particular scene here. This is where this is just a little snippet of where she lets Link have it, or at the end of when she let Link have it. So
but they gotta stick a dynamite up your ass and the fuse is burning. You understand me?
So yeah, she had just pretty much, I think she shot him in the ear and roughed him up, but she was trying to find out from Link, how do I get in with these people? And he's like, hey, Foxy, you don't want to mess with these people, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, she don't care. Foxy's like, I'm going in. So she starts working break that organization down. Oh, and I should have been. Let me get out of the way so you can see some of these beautiful pictures. That's when she went to hook up with the revolutionaries. Um, she works to help one of the girls. That's who Claudia, Juanita Brown is the chick named Claudia. She works to help her get out of the case, and that resulted in out of the life that resulted in a brawl in a lesbian bar, which is hilarious. The two bad guys, so Peter Brown, Catherine Loder, they actually figure out that who Foxy is, so that she's the boyfriend or the girlfriend of Dalton Ford, who they wound up killing. So they actually catch her, they dope her up, they send her off to this like freak off ranch where these rednecks kind of like beat, whip, and sexually assault Foxy. But again, we talking Pam Grier here, so she ain't gonna stay down for too long. So what happens is she winds up escaping, setting the ranch and the rednecks on fire, and then through all of this, the crime syndicate kills Foxy's brother Link, and while they're looking for Foxy, and then that's when again Foxy connects with the vigilante group. She sparks an all-out war with the syndicate. She jacks a plane. That's where Sid Haig comes in as the plane operator. And then to kind of wrap this thing up at the end with the vigilantes, they wound up catching Peter Brown and bringing him to Foxy. And she wound up cutting this thing off. And at the very end of the movie, she actually returns his thing in a jar to Catherine Loder to say, hey, now, you killed my man. I ain't kill your man, but look what I did to him. And you got to live with him without his schlong for the rest of his life. So that was pretty much the premise, the overall premise of the movie itself. And like I said, just being able to see the lovely Pam Grier, man, throughout this thing and different, just how, I mean, you can't say how gorgeous, can't say enough how gorgeous Pam Grier, man, is, man. She's just freaking beautiful. But, and then let me see. Oh, share this one with you. This is I think this one is when
What's the trouble, officer?
There's plenty of trouble for you, Spook. Unless you turn right around and go back where you came from. This road's closed.
Oh, yes, sir. We sure don't want no trouble. And neither do you, Whitey?
Sir.
So that was Bob Miner as the vigilante, and how that's when they actually rolled up to get the bad guys. But I love Bob Miner, man, because like I said, he coordinated the stunts in the movie for a while. He was the president of the Black, I don't know if it's the whole Hollywood Stuntmen's Association, but definitely Black Stuntmen's Association. So cool dude. And if you look at his face, you might remember him from JD's Revenge. All right. So that's Foxy Brown, man. And if nothing else, I'll leave you with one final clip, which kind of just shows Foxy in all her essence. If this doesn't define Pam Grier and, at her best, I don't know what does. So check this one out real quick. This is where basically, even when Pam Grier gets captured and caught, or, is in the midst of the bad folks, she still got the swag and the stuff to show that she's gonna kick butt. So check this one out.
Don't pinch the fruit, faggot.
So he was trying to shake her down, trying to fill her up. She like, don't pinch the fruit, faggot. So gotta love it, man. All right, so that's our movie for this week. Foxy, Pam Grier and Foxy Brown. So make sure you check that one out. So let's shift over to our books for this week, or books. And the reason I say books is because this one actually is a series called Dark Angel, written by a dude named James Duncan Lawrence. And I brought this one in because since we're talking Pam Grier, these books here, man, the Dark Angel series, this is almost like Foxy Brown, Pam Grier rolled. It's like Pam Grier imprints, like all her movies, Foxy Brown, Coffee, all of that rolled up into a book series. And all of these were released in 1975. The premise of the Dark Angel series is it's about a sexy private eye named Angela Hart. And like I said, Angela Hart could be Pam Grier in print when they think of it's almost like an amalgam of all her characters rolled up into one. And the ironic thing about this is the author of the author of Dark Angel, James Duncan Lawrence, he actually is the writer of the Friday Foster comic strip, which Friday Foster was turned into one of Pam Grier's movies in 1975. So interesting connection there. So the breakdown, again, when I think about Blaxploitation books, I say, could this be turned? Can I see this being turned into a movie? And absolutely, without a doubt. Book one is Angela Hart deals with the mob, crooked company execs, and a perverted quack psychiatrist, all while trying to stop and get a piece of a $3 million heist. Book number two, where's book number two? So book number one was the Dream Girl caper. Book number two, can't see that too well because of the green screen, but that's the Emerald Oil caper. So let's put that back. Yeah, that green screen is knocking that one out. The Emerald Oil caper. This one, she takes a case to find out who murdered an oil company executive, and then throughout this book, she comes across underhanded deals, shady double crosses, sadistic thugs, and like freakish rich dudes. I could make a puppy joke here, but I won't. And this one, it's kind of like the arc of the Dark Angel series was kind of like the first book was good. The second book kind of went down, and sort of like when you think of Pam Grier's Coffee was good. Foxy Brown was good, but not as good. And then Sheba Baby and Friday Foster kind of went down. The Dark Angel series kind of followed that same path where the books weren't as good. But I will say this, the author did end up the series on a good note with book 4. But the book number 2, Emerald Oil Caper, though not as good, this one does have some great action sequences, some colorful characters. In fact, there's actually a pimp in this particular book named Long Dong Strong. Hilarious or what? Book number 3, which was book number 3? That was Gilded Snatch Caper. That one, a rich man's daughter is kidnapped, and the Dark Angel was roped into work in the case. She got, kind of not blackmail, but they kind of worked her into work in this particular case. And though not happy about it, is always just like Pam Grier in her movies, the Dark Angel in her series always gets the job done nonetheless. And then the last book, like I said, it did end up on a decent note. That one, the Godmother caper, in this particular one, Foxy, I'm equating her with Pam Grier already. The Dark Angel, Angie Hart, she's called upon to track down and exact revenge on a rapist. And while doing so, she finds that the case is turning into a lot more, from tracking down stolen antiques to fighting the mob, as well as black revolutionaries alike. So a lot going on in this particular book and the whole series, the series as a whole. So I encourage you, if you can pick up, somewhere along the way, you can find them out there. Now, these, again, as with most Blaxploitation paperbacks, they are hard to find, but I think if you're able to come across any or all of these, you might be able to get them for a relatively inexpensive price, maybe like $20-25 a pop. And again, if you want to see more like this, shameless plug, check out www.blaxploitationpaperbacks.com. All right, so that's our books for this week. And so let's kind of wrap this thing up, getting into our music for the weekend. Since this theme is kind of women oriented, we're talking Pam Grier in the movies, we're talking Angie Hart, Dark Angel in the books. We're going to focus on women's for the music. And I actually got 2 ladies, because when I was thinking about, even though we rebranded from the Funk and Soul Explosion, I got a funk and a soul option for you this week. And Our soul option is Laura Lee, Women's Love's Rights. Man, this album is Laura Lee is a very soulful singer. She actually is. This album is kind of like a woman in charge album. Some of the songs that are on there, like "Wedlock is a Padlock." Um, don't be sorry, be careful. It can be good. That's my favorite, I believe. But she recorded on Holland Dozier, HDH, Holland Dozier Holland, who we mentioned last episode, who had the Barrino brothers. She was on their label, their Hot Wax label, and did a couple of recordings there. Now, this one, Women's Love Rights, this one came out in 1971. And again, this is, if we were thinking back to the funk and soul explosion aspect, this is definitely the soul side of it, man. She's a very soulful singer. And let me just give you a couple of snippets of some of the songs that, again, you know how they do me with the copyrights. But this is Don't Be Sorry, Be Careful. This is my favorite one. So yeah, that one, she talks about, hey, she's talking to her man that, hey, if you can't be, if you can't be good, if you go cheat on me, don't be sorry about it. Just be careful so I don't catch you. That one. Now, this second one, this is Two Lovely Pillows. It's kind of like a heartbreak type of song. But the reason I love this one, if you listen to this, anybody out there, any like aspiring hip hop artists or producers, man, this would make a great sample. So, and peep this one. So I'm thinking like somebody like RZA or DJ Premier could really flip that. But so again, looking for some soul to listen to. Laura Lee, Women's Love Rights. All right. So that's the soul side of it. Oh, and then something about Laura Lee. If you ever saw the Blaxploitation movie Detroit 9000, which is, it's a great Blaxploitation movie. It's not great in the sense of, it's great for what it represents of the Blaxploitation era. And I'll probably cover that one in a later episode simply because I'm from Detroit and I kind of love the movie. But she played the singer in the beginning of that particular movie. And so that was kind of cool. Now, from what I understand, she's actually, since around 1990, she shifted, became an ordained minister, and all her music after that was mostly gospel. But again, soul aspect of it, definitely check out Women's Love Rights. All right. So now from the funk side of it, we're going to talk about Betty Davis. And you could just look at that and say, you would think that she was hooked up with Parliament Funkadelic just looking at that. But this has some funky joints on it. And Betty Davis was actually the second wife of Miles Davis. He credited her with introducing him to, or getting him to explore more musically. He introduced him to psychedelic rock, and introduced him to Jimi Hendrix and Sly Stone, getting him into experimenting more with the psychedelic side of his music, and so some of that creative jazz fusion that Miles Davis was known for, particularly the album Witch's Brew. I think she had a heavy influence on him and where he went musically, directionally with that particular album. A documentary was released about Betty Davis in 2017. And because, again, her music real funky, but she never really got the accolades that a lot of people feel she deserves, me as well. And so just going hopefully you know this album, but this is one of the funkiest joints on the album called Shoo-B-Doop and Cop Him. I'm just play a little bit of it and see if you know where this is from. So I'm sure about y'all, it's like Once Upon a Time in the Projects, Ice Cube. So that's the funk aspect of it. So again, if we get out of here, you're ready to get out of here, we'll leave you with a recap. Our movie, Foxy Brown, Pam Grier, can't go wrong. Check it out. Just wonderful, wonderful movie. Our book, the Dark Angel series by James Duncan Lawrence. Check out the 4-book series. And then lastly, our Soul and Funk. So Laura Lee, women's rights and women's love rights. And then Funk, Betty Davis, they say I'm different. All right. So that's what I got for you this week, Foxy Mamas and Cat Daddies. We'll catch you next time on the Blaxploitation Appreciation Podcast. Peace.